Oh, we're 2 weeks to the kickoff of the NFL season. Let's look at the lines, beginning with Bills and Rams 2 weeks from tonight. Buffalo, preseason Super Bowl favorites, 2.5-point favorites against the Rams, who won last year. You got the defending AFC champion Bengals, -6.5 at home against the Steelers. Tua, 3-0 all-time against the Patriots. The Dolphins, -2.5 in that. 3 road teams are touchdown favorites or more. 49ers in Chicago, Ravens at the Jets, Colts at the Texans. That's the largest spread of the week, with the Colts giving 8. And in the late afternoon games on CBS at the top here, Chiefs -3.5 in Arizona, Chargers -3.5 at home against the Raiders, Bucks slight favorites in Dallas Sunday night. Russell Wilson returns to Seattle on Monday night in Week 1. We asked Brady Quinn for his best bets in Week 1 with 2 weeks to go. So lock them in before the lines start moving, because the lines are moving. Let's start with the Lions, +4 at the Eagles. Brady, tell me why this is going to be a 30-plus point turnaround for the Lions this season. The Eagles beat them 44-6 last year.
It's a different Lions team. I mean, for starters, maybe it's the Hard Knocks effect. I don't know. I love Dan Campbell. I do. I wish I could have played for him. I'd be biting off kneecaps right there next to him. But I do think they're building something here. I mean, look how they finished the season. 3-3 down the stretch. I know that doesn't mean much, but this was one of the best teams last year against the spread. Bookmakers or odds makers has constantly underestimated this team's ability to keep games close. So I'm going to say they go into Philly, once again, keep this close, because I do think they're building something. I do think we underestimate the fact that this team is closer than we realize. They're a young team, but they've continually gotten better, and they're being highlighted now by something they missed last season, and that's the ability to get after opposing passers. They're going to have Aiden Hutchinson now off of the edge. He'll be a difference maker. So I like Detroit to keep this one close. And a side note, I'm not as high on Philly this year. I think they overachieved last year, even with the addition of a guy like A.J. Brown. I think they come back down to reality a bit. So I like Detroit to cover this one and maybe even surprise some people like we see a lot of times in Week 1, pull off the upset.
Third best cover percentage last season, despite not winning a game for several months. But they did win 3 of their last 6, and Brady is buying into the Hard Knocks hype. Let's move on to the Ravens. 7-point favorites in New York against the Jets. No Zach Wilson, likely going to be Joe Flacco starting for New York.
Yeah, it's a great storyline, right? You get Joe Flacco going up against his former team, all that stuff. None of that matters, okay? The Ravens are a much better football team, a team that we talk about more when it comes to the postseason, not so much the regular season. The Jets, well, look, they had a good offseason. They added some talent to this roster. However, an injury to Mekhi Becton, then you have to go back out into free agency to help build up this offensive line. A lot of questions there. And you don't have the more mobile Zach Wilson. It's more likely going to be Joe Flacco. And even though I think Flacco actually will do some nice things against a familiar opponent, given the team he used to play for, I just don't think they're there yet from a talent perspective. If you have to rely as heavily as the Jets do on a wide receiver in Garrett Wilson and the rest of the young talent, or defensively on Sauce Gardner, their other first-round pick, at cornerback and the other defensive talent, it's a tough sell. It's a tough buy for me. So 7's a big number for opening week and on the road, but I just think the Ravens are a team right now that are building towards something this year. I think they're going to win the AFC North and move on after this. And plus, the Jets have been awful in the beginning of seasons for the last few years, especially against the spread. So this one's easy for me. You lay the 7 points. You believe in Lamar Jackson and Baltimore getting the win and covering easily coming into town.
And you see that note at the bottom. The Jets 1-11 against the spread in their last 12 games in September. Brady fading the Jets to start this season and loves the Ravens to win the division. Let's move on to another AFC North team. It's the Cleveland Browns. No Deshaun Watson. They're going up against Baker Mayfield, whom they traded away. It's the Baker Mayfield revenge game, and you are going with Baker Mayfield in this matchup.
Yeah, and again, that's the storyline to this matchup, but you got a Panthers team that has a healthy Christian McCaffrey. Thank God. I mean, we've missed his services, and I know he played a little bit the last 2 seasons, but it never really felt like he was 100%. He's talking about now being 100%. He was one of the best players in the NFL when he is. And by the way, you might have a healthy Baker Mayfield to add on to that with the roster that's also improved. You add Ike Ekwonu at the left tackle spot to help improve that offensive line. Defensively, they're already one of the best teams in the NFL last year. So I think this is a much better team than we're giving them credit. And even how the odds makers are, only giving 1.5 at home to open the season against the Browns team that's got a backup quarterback. To me, this is an easy one. You lay the 1.5 points. You trust Baker Mayfield and the Panthers not only to cover this one, to win this one outright.
Brady, you remember where you were the last time the Browns won a season opener?
God, I had to have been a little kid because we didn't when I was there. And thinking back through my childhood, I mean, they left for 3 years. I think between 95, 96 until they came back in 99. So they didn't win any then.
The last time they won a season opener on the road was 1994. Bill Belichick was the coach. The last time they won a season opener, I think you were a sophomore at Notre Dame, 2004. I'm sure you were just too into your studies at the time to remember that one. All right, let's move on to the Jags and Commanders. Washington -3 at home. Jags haven't played in D.C. that much, only 3 times, but they've never won there.
Yeah, and this is one where I don't think they win this one either. And I don't think they keep it close. I mean, look, the Jaguars are also a team that's improved. They spent the most money we've ever seen in an offseason to help improve the roster around Trevor Lawrence. And Doug Peterson comes in, who I think he's got experience. He's won a Super Bowl. That'll help, but not week one, especially not week one on the road. And I'm not necessarily saying that Washington's going to have the greatest home field environment or advantage here, but I just think they're a better roster overall, even without the services of Chase Young, who's now going to have to miss some time still coming off of that knee injury. The reality is the Commanders not only helped themselves through the draft this year, but I think bringing in Carson Wentz, it'll be improvement upon what they had at quarterback play last year. So I'll gladly lay the 3 points here. I think Washington takes care of business, and they improve upon that woeful pass defense that we saw a year ago.
All right, Commanders -3. Brady thinks they're going to get off to a really good start this season with Carson Wentz, at least in week 1. One more best bet from Brady Quinn. We talked about the Browns' struggles in openers. Quietly, the Colts have lost 8 straight season openers, and they're the heaviest favorites of the week. They are -8 against the Texans.
It's crazy to me, right? Not only the history of them struggling early, but also just as big of a line as you'll get, and for a divisional matchup. I mean, 2 teams who are very familiar with one another, and you've got a quarterback in Matt Ryan who's transitioning to a new team. I know he's been there this entire offseason, but it's still a little different once you get out there and actually start game planning and going up against teams that are game planning against you. So I'm just not buying that this isn't going to be a close game. I think the Houston Texans, the roster still has some holes in it, but they're much improved from where they were a year ago. Davis Mills is going to give them a chance in games. And even as good as the Colts defense is, I think this is going to be a tight one. So I'll gladly take the 8 points and the Texans on the road here. I'm not saying they win. I do think the Colts win this matchup, but I think it's going to be a close divisional game.
Brady, you're going to break down the Buffalo Bills, the preseason Super Bowl favorites, a little bit later on HQ, but this is one of your best bets as well. Buffalo opening up against the Rams in L.A. Usually, I mean, if you're a Super Bowl favorite, you return pretty much everybody. You open up at home, you're going to be favored. That is not the case. Bills -2.5. Are you comfortable giving the 2.5 for Buffalo on the road?
I am. I mean, you've got a Buffalo Bills team, one that they've got one of the best fan bases, given even coming off a Super Bowl win. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of Bills fans in the stadium for this one. And so I'm not sure there's a home field advantage there at SoFi for the Rams, even with everything that's going to be coming for this particular matchup. Also, the Bills are just that deep. I mean, we're going to talk about them more in depth, but I think when you look at the matchup between these 2 teams and looking at the game, I think the Bills probably favor most teams. And obviously, even on the road in most cases. That's just how talented and how deep their roster is. So I'm willing to take the Bills right out of the gate, picking up where they left off from last year, where, really, look, we've got a change in overtime rules because of most people thinking this Bills team is that good. Maybe they should have been playing potentially in the Super Bowl if you go back to last year's playoffs. And for the Rams, usually you're concerned about a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover, even though they brought back all their pieces with the exception of Odell Beckham Jr. I just think they could be slow to get out of the gates. Matt Stafford's been dealing with that funny elbow issue. You kind of wonder, too, with some of these guys getting paid, are they going to be somewhat satisfied coming off that Super Bowl year? Or are they really going to be running this thing back to see if they can make it 2 in a row? My bet is that the Bills are the hungrier team here. They're the ones that are going to come out and not only win, but win convincingly to start off the season. Hype
train would be in full force there in Buffalo behind Bills Mafia. Brady Quinn with us here, giving us 5 and an honorable mention, a 6th pick here in week 1. Brady's 6 picks, if you will. He just picked the Bills -2.5 against the Rams. Here are the other 5. He likes the Lions to bite the kneecaps or the cheeks off the Eagles. Ravens -7 against the Jets and Joe Flacco facing his former team, the team he won a Super Bowl MVP with. Panthers -1.5 against Brady's Browns. He's fading Cleveland again. And Commanders, he thinks they'll win convincingly in Jacksonville. And he likes the Texans to cover that number against a Colts team that's struggled in season openers. They've lost 8 straight. All right, compete to win up to $100K with CBS Sports Football Pick'em. You can play on the app or use your laptop or PC or Mac, whatever you got there. CBSSports.com/football.